Hello everyone, sorry for the delay. Let's get to it. Hope everybody is well. Again, apologies for the slight delay. I woke up to a whole bunch of really cool questions and I wanted to get some of them in. So I think it'll be worth it. Let's see who's in. Thanks, William, for the donation and super chat. His question first off the bat is, do you believe in this idea that women love opportunistically? That sounds like an oxymoron to me. Huge red pill eye opener if this concept is true. I think Rollo Tomasi came up with it. I think there is something to it. But hang on, let me just this. I don't know if they're conscious about it. I think women are, and then they ignore it. It's kind of like when women are together, they talk about how they know what they're doing. But I think when they're in the middle of it, I think they kind of turn away from the actual thing they're doing. They don't look directly at it. So I think it varies depending on the personality of the woman. I think it's just a survival reflex. How consciously and callously a woman uses it without the feelings of another, that's another thing altogether. I think that has a lot to do with the person, not necessarily all women. I think all women have that instinct, that survival mode. Depends how much decency, openness, and how much they're willing to put the neck on another person. Remember, guys, if you want to ask questions, make them stand out so I can see them in the stream, in the feed. William asks again, I really have seriously considered if women don't actually love, and yes, women do love. They just love differently to guys. Just imagine if you could see from the eyes of another animal, say. Colors, everything would look differently. So in that way, think about how you see love and how you see honor and everything like other men do. We tend to see things the same way, and we tend to operate from the same place. Think of a woman almost as another animal, where colors would look different. She'd interpret things differently. But so we can get along, there needs to be a language that's similar, but I don't think from our eyes and our senses we interpret and feel things exactly the same way. We give the same things the same name, but we don't feel and connect with them in the same way, I think. Also, let me know if the audio is okay, guys. I'm using a different mic. Transor says, do you believe in life after love? Is that a Sher quote? There has to be. Why wouldn't there be? I mean, think about it. How many times have you been in love and then you meet someone else that makes you laugh and think, oh, I'll forget that last person, or that wasn't anything compared to this, and then so on and so forth. So if there is or isn't, I don't think it's as big a deal as moving on. I mean, what other alternative is there? Okay, let me quickly go down. Hey, the hamster's here. How are you, man? Yeah, I was late, guys. My fault. But I was going through some great questions this morning. Basically, I uploaded a couple of videos just before I went to bed. Tried to get some sleep, and then get up in the morning with enough time to set up and go through some questions. I guess there wasn't enough. No excuse though. quickly get up to date past all the comments of humans late. Christopher says, human, what is a question you would like an answer to? Actually, I need to think about that. Thank you for asking. I guess I ask them in my videos, to be honest. I'm posing these questions to you sometimes, where I might have an idea, but I like to have a conversation. So, yeah, let me think about it. But I generally, I think I ask my questions as I talk to you, as I make my videos. So that might be the best answer. James Hamster says, audio sounds good. Okay, great. Yeah, I was actually having a conversation, which I hope to bring out shortly, with Quasi-Mandias. We had a really, really great conversation. And he kind of pretty much was flexing where he brought, James would recognize this, he brought out a Neumann TLM 103. And I straight away recognized, holy shit, your voice sounds really good in this. So yeah, he was flexing with, I think it's a $5,000 to $8,000 microphone. I'm only using a bit of compression and a little bit of noise gate on this. Slight boost in bass, very slight, and everything else is pretty flat. And slight de-essing. That's about it. That probably doesn't make sense to anybody. Train spotting? Come on. Do I really look like anyone in that? A shaved head? Is that it? Jack asks, you mentioned before being a comic superhero fan. Who was your favorite hero? I'm a comic book fan. I'm not a superhero fan. If I had to pick one, I guess Batman, because there's no superpowers. But not generally a superhero fan. But he's not really a superhero anyway. Yeah, exactly, Hamster. Neumann, TLM 103. Not 102, not the lower ones. And he just casually thought he'd pry it out of a cupboard, out of a box, because he usually can't be bothered using it. Half his luck. Yeah, but I think Quasi-Mandias and yourself, Hamster, you guys sound good on any microphone. I need all the help I can get. All right, let's get back to the questions. Will asks question, should the MGTOW community respond directly, that is, produce direct rebuttals to feminist criticism of the phenomena, or is it really rather pointless to do so? I think it's how we do it. If we're just throwing mud like children, I think it's pointless. If it's, I've said it before that I think it's fairly necessary initially to splash that cold water on your face, to sort of, to let you know what finally is not, what you don't want anymore. You're not an idiot anymore. You are not doing this. What there's a lack of, I think, is afterwards, the your own way, how you'll think later, what you'll do later. There are one or two, a couple of older MGTOW guys that's sort of just showing their everyday life. And that's just an example of like them doing their own thing now. And it's a great sort of look into sort of someone just doing their own thing and calm now. They've passed all that. There's a lot of energy a lot of entertainment I can understand in that initial phase of, you know, making fun and criticizing, saying, oh, look at this article. Can you believe this idiot? That's great. As long as you recognize that you're sharpening your ethics and morals and that you're using that in the world. But I don't think there's a point of criticizing women and the stupid things they do in the media if you yourself don't go out in the world and you don't voice that. So if you just stay quiet, I don't think that's really helpful. It's fun, but imagine how debilitating and impotent it feels that you do all this heroic stuff and you're really courageous and you kind of, you know what's right, and then you switch it off as soon as you stop watching YouTube videos, and you're just silent, and you hunch over and you don't say anything. So I find those videos entertaining as well. They provide insight, but the way I think about them, I go, oh, okay. I look for subtext as well, but if it's the same old thing, for instance, you might look at it as the difference between watching a cheesy and pointless reality TV show with women nagging and bitching. You can look at that like most people who find it entertaining, or you can look at it from the social aspect, the primal, the biological thing where you're taking mental notes and thinking maturely about it. So it depends on the viewer as well. I don't see anything wrong with it. I'm just kind of a little disappointed that there aren't more people making, not old school MGTOW content, but the content that was more thoughtful, because that thinking will help a man deal with the world better. The jokes don't help when he's confronted by a serious situation of a woman testing him. The jokes won't help. The laughing at her is not a comeback. He needs to deal with what's here, if you know what I mean. So I enjoy the entertainment aspect of some guys that can do it well. Pointing out how women act ridiculously, but there really needs to be that cataphatic, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to act, how I'm going to speak, not just kind of blaming women. Like, blame and point out people who act like arseholes, sure, but be constructive as well. Okay, let's see some more questions. Trifol, thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate it, man. Much appreciated. But just at the start of the question, Will, I don't necessarily think MGTOW as a community should respond directly politically or anything. You as an individual, it's really, I see MGTOW as an individual thing. As an individual, do and say what you think is important, but don't forget what's important in your everyday life, because that's where you really live. This stuff is where we're really informed, and we can have conversations too. That's the added benefit today, but that's an addition. The real meat of life is out there, mostly. Unfortunately, we still have to go out there a lot. We live, breathe. We still have the low-level Maslow hierarchy sort of needs to meet. Quasimandias. Ah, it was a TLM 193. I thought it was a 103. Okay. Still a good mic. Thanks for checking in, man. Yeah, I just got, because of this lockdown, I've been waiting for months for 2 separate microphones that I ordered, and they didn't come in until both of them came in tomorrow, 5 minutes apart. I had a knock on the door. I got the package by a guy in a mask, then a knock on the door 5 minutes later from another guy in a mask. So I got this one, which isn't very expensive at all, but I wanted to try it, which is the MXL 770. I like it because it's got a very smooth roll off on the high end. And I've also got a Rodecaster Pro, which is really a really great broadcaster mic. It's a bit too Howard Stern for me, but I might need to sort of subdue it a little bit Sounds really good. Anyway, enough of the tech. Back onto the topic. All right, we're not 20 minutes in because I was late, so we're probably 5 to 10 minutes in. Yes, like as I said, there's nothing wrong with calling out things as a method to understand, but not to comfortably get stuck in there as entertainment, because when life becomes serious out there, when you're confronted by people lying, women acting, as the topic of my last couple of videos that I wanted to focus on, it's not just saying, aha, you're an idiot. It's observing and knowing how you should act and step later on, how you should sidestep or ignore or avoid, because this person's not being genuine. This person's not having a conversation. This person's not relating to me honestly. This person is agreeing with everything I say. And every time, for instance, I mentioned with my friend who's about to get married in the near future, his future wife, she's very manipulative and he can't see it. And it's not so much that I'm a skeptic looking for bad things, but when I talked to her, it was very apparent that I was really listening to everything she said and how she was responding to me. And she's very manipulative. That's the thing. Don't just be drunk on love and what you want to see, because once a man is locked in, as I mentioned in the last video, once the concrete sets and you're in love, it's very hard to pry yourself out of that. That is the hard thing. So much guilt and shame. And sort of, it's really uncalled for, but really it's just entrenched. It's hard for men to sort of rationally get out of it. Even if they know, you know, their friends tells them, look, there's A, B, and C. You know you shouldn't stay. You know what the situation is. And the man will say, yeah, I know, but I just can't. Better you exercise that muscle all the time, because if you're responsible for that in terms of yourself, you'll be responsible for that same muscle in terms of both of you and any relationship you do have. It's not just a one-way street of you emptying out. It's you emptying yourself out and giving via a standard. And then that way of relating to someone would have a better chance of having a tennis match come back and forth, a reciprocal and symbiotic relationship, rather than a one-way street, which happens with most people. They think the more I give, surely one day I'll get recompense. I'll get something coming back. But the way the world is today, where the ends always justify the means, it doesn't happen. And they reward people who, it doesn't matter who they step over. You know, this person got to the top of the hill. The means to that end doesn't matter. And if they did step over somebody else, the ridiculous notion today is, well, those people were idiots if they let that happen to them. So it's better that you're aware of this stuff. Feral Male asks, you honestly think you can convince people to re-examine their beliefs? Hard to reach the ideologically possessed. Perhaps not, but what's more important is you. If you recognize someone's hard-headed or religiously sort of dogmatic, it's kind of like you know your own limits too. You can't just keep beating your head against a brick wall. Red Pill Mentor Tokyo, how are you, man? Nice to see you coming on. Any plans of travel for photography purposes in the future? Anywhere I go, I will take my camera. I mean, last place I went about a year and a half ago was Nepal and then Bangkok. I probably used my camera too much, which at the time didn't please my girlfriend at the time. But yeah, I take my camera everywhere I go. I need more coffee. Christopher asks, can you be MGTOW and still be married with children? 2 points. Doesn't really matter if you are MGTOW. It's kind of how you think, I think. But if you want to be MGTOW, I think generally you can't, because MGTOW is generally about freedom and autonomy. You have the least amount of freedom, so you can be the least amount of MGTOW. So it's like pretty much no. But again, it starts to get back to these rules, which I hate. I think the value of MGTOW and the manosphere is what you can get out of it, how you can inform yourself, the people you can talk to inform yourself, how you can mature, sharpen, so forth. But technically, no. But again, don't tell me how you should be MGTOW either. Don't let me tell you how you should be MGTOW, rather. I get a few comments from people that say, human, you're navel gazing while the world's burning. But again, even before all this, people were navel gazing about the political. They were never taking care of their own values and ethics to propagate themselves out into the world. It's always about everything external. So I think a lot of people are, again, if it comes down to this, survival, and you're still not paying attention to how you think, what's the point? Like, do you even exist? Are you always relating to the external? Is there never a relationship for this from this thing outward and back again? Is it always just you observing things? Web Palette Warrior, you will see some content creators such as Ronan Man who have left the MGTOW label no longer identify with it. I didn't know that. I didn't know he no longer identifies with the label. Will Van, what camera do you use? Panasonic GH5 with a Leica 12mm f1.4. I always tended to use in my previous, prior to my last one, all the previous ones were a 15mm 1.7. This one just, I appear smaller and skinnier, but you see more of the room. That's just a compression of this lens. A few tech questions today. You're tickling my guilty pleasure, though I'm not sure of how many other guys will appreciate it, but thanks for asking. Okay, as you guys continue asking questions, remember, make them stand out. Oh, Chadwick says, what do you think of men who don't fall in a camp and I still enjoy women's company, but am aware of evolutionary biology? I'm not sure. I'm MGTOW and find PUA slimy, whatever. I guess I'm just human. Yeah. Read, inform yourself, watch videos that are more mature, more, I mean, you don't have to be interested in philosophy, but things that make sense, that can be applicable in your life, that you can, think better and operate better in the world. Yeah, just, it looks like you're trying to trust your judgment. Keep doing that, man. Don't, refrain from labels, because the loudest voice in those groups will tell you what you should be if you start identifying with that label, and then they'll shame you if you're not. The biggest egos will dominate. And then again, how far can you go your own way when people are constantly shaming you? You've gone from women shaming you, or your mother shaming you, or whatever, to a group of men shaming you, which is really the last place you'd want to hear it. Ahmed Ghost said, Monday Blue once shared a clip of a psychologist who believed that women is a boon to a man's health, yet the YouTube public seems to think otherwise. Thoughts? Yeah, a woman, I think there are healthy aspects to sort of being with a woman. And again, I'm not saying unicorn, but the way we relate, the position from which we relate, especially women, makes any good things that can come from it virtually impossible. But the more you can calibrate yourself properly and reject everything that's not healthy, the least chance you'll have to get any of that healthy aspect in your life, if you kind of know what I mean. So all this stuff is men's health to me, in a figurative sense, in a verbal, mental acuity, sharpening yourself, philosophical, that kind of sense. Quasi-Mendias, if we give other people access to our power, especially weaker people, don't be surprised if they use that power against us. Yes, because it might not even be conscious. It's operating from a lizard brain, so they're not thinking ethics and morals. They're thinking of the old school survival aspect of, you're approaching my cow, I must kill you because this is my cow and I need to eat. Don't forget, guys, those of us who have survived up until this point in history, our ancestors were the most violent and the most callous. The nice people, the nice kumbaya people, they died. No one had sex with them. Everyone killed them. So our ancestors are the most violent and capricious, generally speaking, right? So imagine, without that fight, which is in our DNA, we're in this opulent world now where we can do and have everything with that fight in our DNA. I can understand why it's so hard for us to be ethically minded and morally minded. We come from that thing where this person's coming towards me. I'm not going to ask questions. I'm not going to be philosophical. I'm not going to sort of get my guitar out and strum strings across, next to a campfire. I'm gonna snap their neck. So that's the challenge today. We come from stock that were violent people that learned to civilize themselves, and now we've placed no challenges, mental, physical, and it's kind of a pressure cooker. Wrap your mind around that. That's something I've been thinking about lately as well. That could be a good topic, although I don't know how to approach it. I think it'd be a good conversation with somebody. Yeah, any questions related to, and guys, the last video isn't so much, again, I don't blame women. And so you'll get some women or some guys say, well, this happens, it's not just men that experience this, or women don't. Just fine. But this is a large blind spot for men. Men naively think the best and believe what they see, simply because they have to operate in the world. And if the stove feels hot, or it says it's hot, then it is hot. And most of the media and internet is helping women understand and sort of placating their interests and so forth. So I'm just talking from a male's point of view. Because I talk for men, it does not mean I'm talking against women. I'm just saying what to be, keep your eyes open for. So whenever I see those comments, but what about women? It's like, I don't care. 99% of the world cares about women. I will care insofar as someone wants to be responsible and act like a grown-up. I will treat anyone fairly, man or woman. Hamster. Yeah, I just mentioned what camera I do. Did I mention GH5? Panasonic GH5. Sorry. Yeah, my camera's getting more attention. Good. Interest in something more than women. Pilot Renzo, thank you very much for the donation. He asks, what's the least risky way for young men to have kids? That's a tricky one. I've been asked that a few times. I think if you know you want that, and good luck to you that you know that for sure. As much work as it sounds, I think going into an environment where you mitigate the risks, sure, but the first step should always be yourself. Have good judgment and boundaries enough that even in the West, you reject and see a person who is completely trustworthy, who doesn't even come anywhere close to being a friend you could trust. There's too many guys that think, well, that's just the women that we have. That's what I have to pick from. No. If no matter how much you try, what you do, and honestly, that you've tried, in every which way possible while being sensible and not reckless, then guys kind of think there are guys that go to third world countries where the laws are a bit more balanced. They're not so as unfair and as dangerous. The thing that is keeping a lot of the divorce, that is keeping a lot of the marriage rates low here. So yeah, going overseas, if you want to go to that extent, to me it's extreme, but then again, I don't value marriage or children. So don't sort of take my perspective. You need to really look at what you value, and then what you value, use your judgment and your morals and ethics to honestly, don't kind of say, yeah, these are my standards, but when it comes to a pretty girl, you just kind of switch off, and then you're a blubbering mess with your tongue hanging out, and you'll just say yes all the time. That's not really you standing up to your values. I mean, if you don't care, why should a woman? If you care, exercise them as much as possible. And if you know you're doing it in the West, and every woman you meet tends to be similar, do something different. Go somewhere different. Change your environment. But I wouldn't, but I told you my reasons. Travis says, how did you like Bangkok? I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I'd love to go again. I thought it was great. I was in the city. Just the people, the food, just really, there's nothing bad I could really say about it. The nightlife was a bit seedy. That didn't interest me at all, but I thought it was really good. Daytime, fantastic. All right. Lodestar says, what would you have done without the internet to connect with other men who actually see the state of things similar to you? I would probably think I need therapy. Perhaps. I think I just would have read more. I would have written more. I would have published more books. I'm guessing that's what would have happened more to me. Forgot my glasses. Do I seem more normal now? I can just imagine someone putting in the comment section a timestamp of when I put my glasses on. Remember to highlight your question, guys. Mr. Highway, hey man. He asks, I've never been with a woman long enough for her to flip on me so suddenly. It sounds so jarring and surreal. Would you describe it as traumatic? Yeah. It seems like an event that changes you permanently. It does, especially if you've really connected with that person. It's happened to me, I think, almost 10 years ago. I really got traumatized by it. I don't know if traumatized is the right word, but it really, really affected me. I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I got an infection in my finger that I had to go to a doctor for. It really sort of snapped me mentally because I was trying to figure it out. It was literally out of nowhere. It was after a nearly a 2.5 year relationship. She just ghosted me. She fell out of love. But yeah, it does. I suspect she was probably cheating on me. When I look at the little signs, I won't go into it. But again, I kind of fell for her, and that's what happened. But you can't sort of, if I want to experience something with somebody, if I want to experience life, I can't sort of, for my own sake, I'd rather be honest, protect my low level Maslow, my roof and shelter and all that. But I don't know. I'd rather get the most out of life and get my heart broken, but not recklessly though. But the best way to learn and recover is to practice enough of this stuff beforehand as well. So this kind of mental training and verbal training, and it helps out. John the Other. Is this the John the Other? If it is, welcome, man. In your recent video, in response to TL, you said, don't give her attention. Do you believe the attention she got played positively in her head? Probably. I think she'll always think she's right. That kind of personality, the hamster wheel always ducks. If a responsibility is facing her like a mirror, she'll just move to the side so she doesn't have to look at it. And her friends will confirm, which her friends will be her reality to confirm that, no, you're great. No, he was an a-hole. You're so worth it. You deserve better, and so forth. And can we expect more unhinged rants from me? I don't think it was too unhinged. It was a little bit. I try and keep them. I try and be level-headed and informative even when I am ranting a bit. When I'm being apathetically kind of annoyed. Yeah, it's a one thing where she's a good topic to talk about because she's the flavor of the week. So you'll get a lot of guys being able to connect with the idea you're relating about her. She's a central focus, and it'll make those ideas clearer rather than just talking about those ideas in the abstract without attaching it to something concrete, which is, I think I've talked to Quasimandias about this a few times, where a lot of these helpful ideas seem abstract to guys in red pill rage to the middle before they're starting to go their own way of their own accord. When they start to go their own way and they're finding their own values and their own path, the philosophical, mythopoetic sort of stories and metaphors and stuff, those are the things that help you on that part of your journey. But beforehand, overly flowery language, abstract concepts, I think are very hard for the average personality. They seem theatrical. They seem like, oh yeah, that's interesting, human. That's very intelligent. Anyway, did you hear about what Tommy and Lauren said? So it's kind of hard. Twilight Magazine says, how do you see... A Midnight Magazine says, how do you see your Twilight years looking? I'm just trying to maintain my present, and I hope my future, I know it will deteriorate, will be as best as it can be, because I'm being responsible for myself now. It's as best as I can put it. Feral Male says, is it perhaps unfair to expect women to behave as mature adult men would behave? Maybe, but again, I don't care. This is kind of my standard, because I know if I don't, it's a whole world of hurt. You're dealing with children, you're dealing with rants, you're dealing with irrational fights, low-level stress, high levels of cortisol, and irrationally high levels of cortisol that you can never subdue, because you don't know why you're fighting. You don't know what's her mood going to be like tomorrow. It's all based about mood and feelings, and she can't explain herself. She doesn't have morals. The musical chairs. I mean, whether they can or can is beside the point. They should. Men and women were more rational, or not rational, well-behaved. There were standards by which they could curb a lot of dysfunctional emotion that had no place in sort of a harmonious life between men and women, whether or not you wanted to get married. This is the other thing. I think sometimes that it would have been such a great sort of progression to the human race, say even if marriage did start to slowly fade out of, not fade out, but be less popular. If you kept some of the morals and the ways of relating, there'd be this new frontier, a new way of having relationships that would still be mature. Now it's all childish. Imagine being able to have mature relationships, and there's certain social norms about doing so that are adult. They're not hormonally, pubescent. I know some will say, well, that's all getting together is biologically. It's hormones, having sex, and then that's it. I know. Sort of, I'm a long chess player. I'm just trying to fly through. Sorry if I missed some of your questions, guys, but I need to get through some of these questions, so it's not intentional if I miss some of your questions. Carl K, have you ever thought of just expatriating to Bangkok or somewhere else? Maybe. All my family and friends are here as well, and I value them. But yeah, from my experience, limited travel experience, Bangkok, I can really see the appeal. Beforehand, I was always skeptical. I thought it was just a skeezy excuse to go and have your fun as a guy. But it's a really good place. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. Hamzarabi, thank you for the donation, man. I appreciate the super chat. His question is, I constantly see radical feminists discuss making humanity an all-female species using various reproductive technologies. Do you think that an actual possibility that they may achieve that goal? No, I think even the real people that are in charge, they won't let it get that far because women won't be responsible for those decisions. If you make reproduction unnecessary between men and women to relate, men will just take that and go, artificial womb, see you later. You've just gotten rid of all my problems. I don't need women anymore. Sex dolls and AI are already becoming pretty advanced. If you get the artificial womb, bye-bye. women as the short-sightedness of women, it wouldn't surprise me that they're aiming for it, but their short-sightedness is exactly what will sort of ruin them, because whichever way you look at it, the mental and physical strength of men compared to women. The independence of men and women is, women have been sucked in. It's a Trojan horse in the end for men to win everything. And even as a man, I don't want to see that happen. Oh, this is a cool one. What are your thoughts on the desire for revenge? Have you ever enacted it? I don't like revenge. I like justice. Can't remember if it was me or somebody else who wrote down the saying, justice is male, revenge is female. I'm not being egocentric. I just remember the saying from a long time ago, and I can't remember if I wrote it down many, many years ago. But I've always thought that the fairness, not just in good times, but the self-defense mechanism of, say, justice, I think is righteous. Revenge, I don't subscribe to revenge. I think that's a lot of what the kind of angriest side of the manosphere is trying to do over and over again. And again, what's the reward you get? It's poison that you drink that you hope another will die from. And another good question from JW. Is there a woman out there who was really fantastic, who you hurt, broke up with, and you regret it? My last relationship, when I left, I would have hurt her by what I said, but even now, I regret how I did it, but what I said was absolutely necessary. I gave her my mind and I told her exactly how I felt and who I thought she was, and I'd had enough. I regret possibly how much I turned the volume up on it, figuratively speaking, but I wanted her to exactly know how I felt for one last time, because I'd been repeating it in a nice way and a stern way, building up to that point for 6 months to 10 months prior, and it was on deaf ears, and it was on passive-aggressive, egocentric ears. But in terms of who I really thought was fantastic. Funnily enough, the one really great relationship I had when it ended, she didn't hurt me as much as all the other women who weren't right for me. Now, that's probably a subject for another video, where the women that tend to hurt us the most, when we look back on it, weren't right for us, or they were less right for us. The ones that hurt us the least were better for us. And the girl that was the best for me, who I probably love the most, especially in the way I can relate to the relationship, when she left, I really wanted her to be happy, but I knew we couldn't be together. Other relationships, if you put them down on paper, they're a joke. But I don't think they break your heart. I think they break your expectations. They weren't the right person. So yeah, I think that's a subject for another video. That's something else that's going on there. Cool name, bro, says, what do you think is the next big thing to happen in the next 5 years that will ruin the gender dynamics even more, like online dating, then social media, Tinder? I don't know, man. These kind of Nostradamus kind of questions. I don't know. I think we should be focusing on, if at all, how much better a person will I be? What will I be in the next 5 years or in the next 2 years? Things like that. It's and I'm not being glib. I'm not putting you down, but I think it's an impotent question because it's conveniently sort of powerless. Like, yeah, the world is just going to be what it is. The more chance of it being better is you being better and spreading that out through the people you interact with, the people you choose, and the people you reject. Starve bad people, encourage good people, and interact that way. Spread that out. Brad says, Human, a friend of mine is in Kazakhstan, just got divorced, and she won't let him see the children. If it's a Muslim nation and they have all the same problems as us now. Yeah, I think there's a misnomer from the non-Muslim side, especially the Western male, thinking, oh yeah, Muslims have got it all figured out. But Coltane did a video where he outlined that they don't have it much better. In fact, in a lot of ways, they have it worse in terms of the amount Muslim men work, the lack of financial and economic rights during the marriage, how much they have to give, how much ownership a woman has of her own stuff. So basically, he might have the right to say certain things and do certain things, but when push comes to shove, her money's hers, their money is hers, and the man still does most of the work and has most of the responsibility. So it's not a paradise, but again, it's that grass is always greener. Something else or someone else always looks like they've got a perfect world and yours is just awful. I think Muslim men have their own problems as well. Prof Doc says, Human, if you had a girlfriend last year, about a year and a half ago, how do you protect yourself legally if she gets angry? Well, what can she do now? And what can she prove? You might be able to say, yeah. There's a lot of kind of extreme disaster kind of scenarios you can place in your head, but generally, how I acted with her, and I've mitigated the risks to a large degree without getting into too much detail. Lee asks, where do you go for intelligent debate in the manosphere? Intelligent conversation? You can always jump onto my Discord comment section of channels that you respect. Generally, the content creator tends to have similar, not always, but I've tried to foster like-minded, mature responses and comments on my channel. And then you get a lot of great comments and feedback from the videos and the topics you're talking about. That feeds into your perception, it feeds into other videos you might want to make, discussions you have with guys, you'll meet other intelligent guys. Like I've met a couple of great guys that I've had conversations with because of the standard that I'm trying to convey and the things I'm trying to talk about. So all that helps. So yeah, look at the stuff you're consuming, the entertainment, the people you're around, the kind of comments you leave, which kind of comments you side with. They're the kind of friends you'll start to make, and ask yourself if you really want them. Is it good for you? JW says, have you ever noticed that most people are never truly present? Yes. People look... Whoa, what, that was a jump. People look forward to the next event, and then during that event they seem distant, not engaged. Yeah. It's almost like they're afraid of themselves. Maybe because there's no one there. So the more you start, that's what I'm saying, the more you start thinking about what do I think, you're here, the I. But if it's always them, the government, feminism, the future, what's going to happen in 10 years, I feel bad about my past. Thank you for the donation, Alpha Dog. I appreciate it, man. I think the people that are always anxious and afraid, they're either empty, they're afraid to face the emptiness, and fill it up with something. And what you have to fill it up with, I think it starts to lean to, it's got to be something responsible and workable. Whereas past and future can be fictional, magical thinking, because it can be anything. It's nothing you need to put your hands on or can put your hands on right now. Okay, keep putting questions in. I think I've got a few really nice, poignant comments from the last video. Spook said, when she says, where is this relationship going? What she really is saying is, I'm tired of acting. Yep, that could be it. Again, don't take it as an axiom, but be aware of this stuff. So if you suspect this with a woman in front of you, ask her. Or indirectly ask her by, talking in that direction to sort of see what exactly she means by that. Where do you want this relationship to go? And don't sort of be gaslit. But be aware of this stuff, guys. That's all I'm saying. Be aware of it. Don't be aware to make fun of other people. Be aware so that you're more secure in your life and you don't make mistakes. James said, even if the mask aspect goes both ways, it's a bit more deceptive if there are major resources that can move from one to another. For example, if one wears a mask until the marriage contract is signed. Yes, exactly. Wearing a mask, I mean, you could say, well, the most you get out of it is a heartbreak, and it's a person's own fault that they want to be fake. Sure, but there's also that aspect. You have kids, it's kind of, and the person just stays in the mode of lying. That's a real waste. Plasma Mongoose says, when you make the mistake of asking a female for advice on how to get a woman to go out with you, she will tell you to be yourself. I suspect the real reason she says this is so you don't end up using the same chameleon tactics that they do to get with them. Yeah, touches on a few videos I've made. They want you vulnerable, completely trusting right off the bat, and they can kind of remain passive and use the excuse of, I'm a girl, I'm shy, because you're allowed to be. But a guy, if he's shy, he gets nowhere. Even more risk of a man being naively vulnerable. Cosmopolitan Bay, never judge a book by its cover. Is a great rule of thumb. It applies to both sexes. I understand you're giving it a gender-specific spin. Yes, I am. And I don't apologize for that again, because not enough men are given this specific advice. They're always told to, be mindful of the female, have some patience for her. But none of it is reciprocally directed to the man. None of that understanding is given to us. So I make no apologies for always focusing on the male, because it rarely, if ever, is. He continues, there may be some truth to it, yet I believe most people are poor judges of character. Yes, society conditions men with this sweet, vulnerable and loving idea of what a woman is, which is wrong and very damaging to both men and women in the long run. Exactly, I agree. People show you who they are if you're willing to listen and notice. Even from the start, when the deal needs to be sweetened. Having said that, some people are very good at hiding their flaws, or acting, or not wanting to be open while they push that you be open, and they think that the more you're open, one day they'll be trusting enough to finally be open themselves. But that's not fair. If you take 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, if you're constantly taking steps forward and the person barely comes out of their shell and retreats, it's not a good relationship. You're giving more, you're being more vulnerable, you're being more open, and the other person just being cowardly. You want a person that's on the same page as you, that you can walk in lockstep with. Alpha Dog says, I'm not that big into religion anymore, but I just heard about a verse that says not to give a woman your strength. I find it very interesting. Yeah, share your strength. Don't give anything wholesale unless it's unless it's going to be, how can I put it? Yeah, I just say share, don't give. Share. Not with expectation, but giving, I think, as a default implies people are just kind of giving of themselves with expecting nothing. But it's not expecting either. I think it comes back to the being aware of yourself. Then you don't have much barriers or fear of what you're giving, because it's always tethered to yourself and self-respect and being able to judge things properly. TMR0412, hey human, question. You seem to have a good relationship with your family. Yes, I do. How have they responded to your life decisions, and do you share your philosophies freely with them? Thanks for asking the question. I do share my philosophies. I talk like this with everyone. I believe the more you are consistent in the way you are, don't be like you need to be when you go to work, to put on a mask there. Well, then when you're with a girlfriend, you're in boyfriend mode, and when you're with your family, you're in son mode. I'd say be who you are as much as possible. Yeah, I try and just be consistent. I honestly do, and I have less to worry about, because I've got nothing to feel guilty or shameful for, because I'm honestly trying to be as honest as I can. I'm not perfect. There's some situations that I can be a coward in some, but I try and be aware of it, and I try and rectify that, and know the line between cowardice and recklessness, and burning bridges and things like that. Luke says, is it good to invest in cat food and products? Yeah, cat food and vibrators, invest in those. Carl asks, since women love accountability like a snail loves salt, how many times have relationships ended when you held up the mirror and held her accountable? Yeah, but I didn't hold very much hope in her taking it to heart and maybe reflecting. She doesn't need to change for me, but maybe reflecting for her own good for the next guy, so she can be happy. Because ultimately, I mean, me and her, if it didn't work out, the impulse is to be happy with somebody, to enjoy life with a person. So you didn't do it unless you're some psycho that gets off on, a relationship for me is, running it into the ground, and I get a lot of joy out of that. Most people want it to be good. So the best you can do is know yourself in that relationship, know where you stand, so you can kind of play tennis with that between each other, and not lie to yourself, not say a lot, because if the relationship means anything to you, you're going to be open and talk about it. If one person's always hiding and using the hamster wheel of, Oh no, I'm not. I'm not thinking anything. Nothing's wrong. I don't think anything about that subject. And then they blow up in other ways. Stupid arguments are the worst, especially the older you get. It's just a waste of time. Cool Names Bro asks me a very interesting question. Have any of your girlfriends ever said sorry genuinely to you? My pause is probably telling. Maybe two. Somewhere around there. Very small number. Very small number. And I'm thinking of the serious relationships, which I've had 5. And by serious I mean more than 2 years. Minimum. All the rest of them, they just blur into whatever. Like, I don't really kind of but no. I think it's also part of the survival thing. As well, it's hard for women to say sorry because they need to be a good product to be chosen, to be asked out. And if you're a defective one, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, oh, I made a mistake, I'm not perfect. It's kind of like, oh, okay, let me think twice. But not very many at all. Real name's not given. What's behind the mask is not truth, just another side of yourself. What's your opinion on this? Okay, that's a bit existential. Yeah, like, what's really you? And then other people, they put another mask on top of that. It's just, I think at the end of the day, it's how honestly you can dance with each other and not be afraid to just say what you think. And it's not so much about loss, prepared to lose the person if they can't accept it, or the friend. It's like, how would you rather live? The less irrational fear you can have, the more honest you can be, I think is a really simple calibrating factor to having a better life. All the other stuff, the forensics of, existential philosophy and, like, complicating a particular point of view that we're discussing, can be a bit too much and interesting, and I can fall into that rabbit hole as well, because my brain loves exercising sort of and doing that. But in terms of living life, the simpler you can make things, the better. Have a simple principle by which you can sort of calibrate your life. Alpha Dog, thank you for the donation, man. He asked, how do we know psychos? My friend was with this heroin addict. He said she's a good girl, but she got arrested recently. She had an affair with a cop in Vegas, and it's really blown up. She's in prison. Yeah, it's funny when guys say, aside from this train wreck that I'm describing, she's fantastic. My friend who's about to get married, he did that as well. Yeah, aside from her leaving every few months and not contacting me and ghosting me for a couple of weeks, and me not knowing where she is and me going crazy, or aside from her friends that are gold diggers, or aside from her anger issues and how she, just blows up at me and throws things at me, aside from those, she's such a sweet, sweet girl. What can you do? I don't know. All you can do is offer advice. But if the person's hamster wheeling their excuses to justify their lizard brain with regard to the person, they're adults. They're not your child. Smearbeer, how seriously do guys insist it's actually men who are oppressed in the Muslim world? It's a joke with a kernel of truth, right? No, I'm not saying men are oppressed. I'm saying Muslim men don't have a clean slate. They have to sort of do a fair bit of work, and they've got their own challenges. I think a lot of Western men think it's just sort of a harem of utopia. But yeah, you think about female nature and having to deal with one woman. Okay, multiply that now. and look into their laws as well. It's not all muffins and rainbows. Alpha Dog, thanks for the super chat. He says, I feel bad because I was trying to advise him on how to keep her out of pain, but she sounds pretty evil, actually. Yeah, I can imagine given the personality of her that you described. Sorry for the coughing, guys. I woke up and my throat is dry. That's why I'm drinking. All you can do is advise. I mentioned my friend that I'm trying to advise. You know your friend's personality. You know how is the best way to get through to him. For instance, my friend who's about to get married, wrongly I think, he's very stubborn. If I push him too hard, which I don't do anyway, I know what kind of advice will make him fight me, and then he'll completely be on her side and she'll sort of consume him, and he won't have anyone to talk to. So I want that communication to be open between me and him. So I know my friend and his personality. So if you know your friend, try and keep talking to him in a sympathetic way, in ways in which your advice might actually help him make a healthier decision for him, because he sounds fairly blind at the moment. He's not sort of looking at the situation as a third person. He's trying to justify a lot of bad behavior. Yeah, she's a sociopath, but she cooks really well, or the sex is really good. Carl says, also, what are your thoughts on the expression in the manosphere? You either dominate, serve, or go your own way. Yeah, it's a little too triumphalistic, a little too egocentric. I suppose you dominate, serve, or go your own way. Some of those dominate, serve, they're very kind of defensive binary ways of thinking, but they're useful in knowing what you won't do anymore, as I said. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, sorry, in any depth. Wade asks, what kind of eyeglasses do I have? They're just cheap ones I ordered online. I've got 2 or 3 pairs like this. One in my work bag, one here in the studio, and one somewhere else. And they all look exactly the same. They're not the same brand, but I just picked the basic black plastic cheap Wayfarer style. I have no idea. This is some no-name brand. Cool Names Bro says, have you seen Gone Girl? Yes. One of the best films at demonstrating female nature. Rare gem of truth. It's again, don't confuse all women acting like that. That's an extreme of a psychotic woman. I'd say a movie I watched recently on the recommendation of one of you guys in a recent live feed was watch Gone with the Wind to see a less psychotic version of female nature exposed. It's a long movie, so if you've got an afternoon, it might be worth your while if you don't mind older movies. But yeah, Gone Girl is it's also a good way to get guys burrowed in their hole and caged out of society and saying, see, all women are like that. Yeah, that's female nature at its worst with a psychopathic personality. Riff Margos, thank you very much for the donation, man. His question is, I like your work humor. My friend who was MGTOW is lured back onto the plantation. I can see the slumped shoulders and the defeated eyes. He doesn't acknowledge me in public when he's with her. Sad. Yeah, it's shame. Guys who have never been exposed to about the only place you can get much male mentoring in a larger tribal sense that has been lost in history is the manosphere on the internet, because it's hard to find those networks, small groups of friends where you can talk like this. And I think I can, you can kind of understand guys who aren't exposed to it. They have an intuition that they don't follow, and then they find themselves slumped over, like you said, your friend. But coming from being unplugged like Neo, and then being Neo and saying, I'm going to do the same thing that Cypher did, and then having head slumped down and going, yeah, I remember the Matrix, why'd I do this? Midnight Magazine, do you reckon are you from Australia? Do you reckon finding a girl that does something creative, example, writing, music, acting, is possibly a sign of a more analytic, self-reflective personality and therefore a safer option? If you're creative too, yes, because you can recognize someone that's on your plane. If you're not creative, there are a lot of crazy creative women out there, into sort of memes and crystals and unicorns and feminism. There's a lot of creative feminists. In fact, there's the majority of feminists are in creative fields. So I'd say it depends on what you're like. If you can recognize what creativity is and what that mind is and the people that you can relate to, then a creative woman just in and of itself isn't a good sign at all. I'd say be wary. It's not always a safe option. Could be worse. Lee says, in the present manosphere, high value men is now the buzz phrase. That only if you get resources you can succeed with women today. What are your views? Yeah, it's a little bit sleazy, because resources is like, well, get the resources for yourself so you don't have to worry about women, and you're sweet. But then conveniently you get resources and you can attract women, so it's a win-win for the guy that's not being honest. Again, depends on you. If you want to fool yourself, go ahead. Waste your life working and sprinting on a treadmill that really in the end you could do less you could do of less with. Yeah, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Any more questions related to the last couple of videos in terms of my idea that women don't really change? We're tired of, women, she changed. She never changed. Most women aren't honest and brave enough. The things that they expect and really want us to be, they're not doing it themselves at the start. Not only do they do us a disservice and a potentially good relationship a disservice, they shoot themselves in the foot over and over again because they're being cowardly. Colin asks, how prevalent do you feel men who live in the plantations are afraid to speak up? Yeah, there's a lot of the typical guy in his shed, and he's just trying to get a little bit of peace somewhere on the side. I think it's fairly common. I've got one more question, I think. Richard says, a few different approaches I've used in the past to save time. One, pay close attention to the relationship with her father. Yes, this is something I dismissed with my with an ex, where she really had no patience for her father. Her father would come over and fix her gutters, and her reaction was like, Dad, can you just go? Leave me alone. Like, she really could not wait to dismiss her father. She rolled her eyes at her father, and really, I should have seen it or recognized much early on that she didn't respect that the not the masculine, but sort of the father figure or the male as an archetype. And especially her father was kind of strict but really protective, like an old school European man. Him and I got on great. Out of that relationship, I probably miss her dog and her father the most. but she really didn't like, her father irritated her. He continues, that is a good indication of how healthy her outlook towards men is. Exactly, as this was the first major male influence in her life. Exactly. 2, while stating, take her out of her comfort zone. I like to do this via physical demanding activities, long hikes through rugged mountains and terrain. If it rains, even better. The sooner you see how she reacts under pressure, the sooner you see what lies beneath. I agree. I've always said, for guys that are looking to, they just have to live with a woman or get married, a great test is to take both of you in environments where you have to rely on each other and be tested. An easy one is to go on a holiday with her, a vacation for more than a couple of weeks, where you have to rely on each other, somewhere foreign, see what comes out. Impatience, anger. Does she have your back? When you need her, is she there? Do you work as a team, or is she on her own and you're just a boyfriend object that she gets annoyed with that's not doing what she wants? Are you a pet? And 3 is the first time she shit tests you, shut it down. Exactly. Lodestar, regarding your last video, I noticed I had cut out most female relationships of all kinds, not because they changed, but I did. Yes, that's another good point. When you finally realize you changed for the better and you don't regret now the quantity of women, but the quality becomes very important. He continues, but I did. Basically, they didn't appreciate being called out. Yeah. There's something liberating in terms of going your own way in the ability to speak it. You don't mind losing what's rubbish anymore. The quality of your life, the quality of people it really comes in focus. I've mentioned this when I buried my father earlier this year. The quality of my life really came into focus. The people, I don't care if I've only got one friend. I've got my family, I've got my friends that I really value, the people I chat to, the work I do, the writing, all the things I really value. Life is going to take from me as the years go. I'll try to keep the quality of what I have and the people I have. So I'm going to lose the least amount that I can. It's a losing game, but the quality of your life matters, gentlemen, not the quantity, not just any woman, not just any job. And you've got to be a bit braver in how you think and how you voice what you think. Okay, we've been going for an hour and a quarter at the moment. Throw your last questions, guys, and let's wrap it up. This has been a good one. Yes, Colin says, going your own way equals improving the quality of your life. Exactly. It's not about being better than women. As corny as it sounds, be better than who you were. All right, guys. Let's wrap it up. I think we've had a good one. Nice one. Just over an hour. Thanks for showing up. Apologies for me being 5 or so minutes late. But I was trying to get a lot of these questions out and make it a good one, which I hope it was. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye.